ArtLab, the dedicated art space. I'm Jason Miller, ArtLab Selection Committee Chair. I'm seated here with Jan Hankins. We are in the midst of his ArtLab installation titled 11 Septembers. Jan Hankins, 11 Septembers ago, had his first ArtLab show out of the janitor's closet. Jan, happy to have you here.
Glad to be here.
Well, so what was it that brought on the creation of this artwork behind us?
The first piece was after Bush got Saddam, and that was 2002. I don't remember which year. And then the next one was just sort of the bookend of that 10-year period when Obama got Osama, signified by the 10 candles in Osama's turban.
What was it that led you to placing the butterflies around Bush's head?
Because he was in the middle of the mission accomplished phase.
Gotcha. So he
the
was
early parts of the war.
So he was kind of in ecstasy.
Everything's okay now.
And Obama, he has a assertive, overzealous grin.
Yeah. Because, I mean, after all, it was Osama we went over there to get. But after a couple of years, I think Bush said something like, Osama bin Laden, well, I don't think much about him anymore. So,
I see, and you you kind of morphed Osama bin Laden's head into a birthday cake.
yeah, birthday cake, and this is based on the fake photo that was circulating on the internet, supposedly as his image.
Right?
Death. It was all photoshopped. And
Got you, wonderful. And then is this a Special Forces logo on the T?
no, that's the Tea Party falling apart.
That's the Tea Party falling apart. And this, I've noticed across the board in many of your pieces, you have these strange characters. This almost looks like a Pez dispenser morphed into some other type of character. Where did these characters originate?
This is, I don't remember the name of the toy, but it was a dipping bird that you put near a glass of water and it would dip it was based on that principle of alcohol rising when it's hot or cool, and then it would kind of keep going. And to me, it looked like an oil pump.
Wonderful, wonderful. And you've got, it's almost like these coals, this fire is fueling this whole situation. It's almost like Bush and Obama are in a cauldron being heated up themselves. Is this meant to focus on?
Yeah. Well, yeah, they're in the same burning boat, and they've got this little chain here between them two.
The chain of subtlety, which is also heightened by the fact that it bridges the two panels together,
Yes,
the two
right.
canvases.
Yeah, president inherits whatever came before, so.
Right. Aesthetically, formally, conceptually, that chain fortifies the whole idea of the subject matter.
Continuity of the office.
So Jan, is there a title to this piece?
No, I didn't really think about the title. I guess it was it was Operation Howl.
Operation Howl, and this is an atomic blast?
It's an atomic blast in a negative image at 0.0008 seconds.
And you gained this imagery from?
A book called 100 Suns.
100 Suns.
And I picked it up at Burke's Books And I was just alluding to this possibility since the drone strikes that have been occurring on the Pakistan border, and who knows how far that'll go.
Right. All of your work is political commentary.
In this group, yes.
The treatment of the panel, this is a wooden panel cut to fortify the shape and content of the image. It's monochromatic. Do you mainly always work in acrylic, or do you sometimes work in oil as well?
Oil, acrylic, enamels, whatever seems to suit the purpose.
What was the main subject that you felt you hit upon by reproducing this photographic image into a painting?
I guess to me it looked almost like an oversized microscopic monster.
It does have a sinister appeal.
Yeah, okay.
This line you fortified beneath.
Yeah, that's in charcoal. I mean, it's in the photo. It's sort of
Is this the horizon line?
well, it's the space under the test that got lit up.
This is the far left panel of a 5-panel mural. What is the exact size of this painting?
8 feet by 20 feet.
8 feet by 20 feet. A perfect match for this wall in ArtLab. Is this the first time this mural has been shown?
Yes.
Wow.
I guess it might be 6 years old
Wow.
or older.
Let's talk a little bit about some of the imagery and symbolism. So Jan, we are looking at a detail. Is there a title to this mural?
Umpteenth Amendment.
Umpteenth Amendment. Look at the way this Coke can is rendered. What were you thinking when you rendered this Coke can?
Well, it's based on the Anita Hill testimony during Clarence Thomas's confirmation hearings for Supreme Court judge, and she was giving some details about the sort of sexual harassment, I guess you would call it, and one of the things he said was, "I do believe there's a pubic hair on my Coca-Cola can."
Unmistakably rendered. Very gestural and animated the way the top, and you've extenuated the mouth of that Coke can.
Yeah.
What was your reasoning behind that?
I don't know. I just sort of wanted it a gaping hole there.
Like a black hole, like a void, kind of a mystery, an enigma.
Yeah, you know, put a little more sex into it.
And these molecules, what type of molecular structure are we looking at here?
That is DNA.
DNA.
Which may be owned by some corporation in the dystopian future.
And I see hints of fiat money.
Yeah, it's the whole piece is based on the black and white side and the green side of a dollar bill. So it's got all the engraving and
Right. Painstakingly rendered. Very graphic designish. You have graphic design as part of your background experience.
yes. As a matter of fact, when I was working on this for 3 years, I would use the panel to draw graphic patterns and perforate it, which you can see in the glare you know, at an oblique angle to the painting, you can see
Right.
little perforations. And then I came back later and on the backside pushed paint back through the holes.
Right.
Frivolous detail.
And who are these characters for people who may not know?
Oh, yes, that is Attorney General Ashcroft at the top. He was the first Attorney General. He's the one that draped the nude statues in the Justice Department with blue cloth because
Oh,
you know, that's just bad stuff. This is Gonzalez, the next guy in that office, and then that's Clarence Thomas.
now we have struck oil here.
Yes.
What is your
It's all about
referencing?
oil.
It's all about the oil.
Petrodollar, the petrodollar.
Petrodollar. What is your philosophy on the petrodollar?
I think it's an oppressive currency in the world. And the United States does not like it when other countries decide not to connect their oil trade with the dollar.
What do you think is going to happen when we've used up all of our oil resource? I know technologies this day are working on replacement sources that can speed up the process of pressure and time necessary to create fuels such as oil. I mean, there are not going to be any more dinosaurs around, so we're not going to get any more oil once all the oil is exploited for profit. If we ever eventually need oil and we've used it all up, we're going to be out of luck.
Because a lot of oil is used in plastics and other processes. It's not all going into your car.
Rubber, tires, yes.
So, yeah, I mean, if they can do that, and there's even a notorious Russian chemist who claims that oil is constantly being produced, but I think he's pretty much a shill for the oil industry.
Right, you think he's on their side?
Yeah, he's trying to negate the idea of it as a fossil fuel.
Moving on, this creature, you have surreal creatures that morph from human to object and back again. I've noticed strange, contorted and distorted limbs of perhaps a limb such as a leg here that almost takes on this amorphous shape. Some of your characters are androgynous and almost not even completely human, more spiritual, more celestial type of creatures. Then you've got these hands holding these instruments.
Those are welders.
They almost take on a totalitarian form. Do you feel that the welder here is being used for the power of good or evil?
They're basically trying to keep the whole thing together. The whole money and oil continuum
Right.
going.
This laser
They
beam,
also represent labor.
where is this laser beam shooting?
It shoots all the way over to the little George Bush on the right side.
Tell me when I've reached him. Is this
There
him?
you go.
You have made him to be a wretched creature.
Yeah, he was signing some sort of bill, and he just had that look on his face, which I kind of exaggerated.
Do you believe,
I think most of these are caricatures anyway.
so you've breathed idealism into this quite a bit,
Yeah, I consider it a political cartoon.
right? Then you reference the skull and bones here,
Skull and bones.
and he's sucking some type of power pointed, inverted toward him as if it's a me mentality.
Right. On the dollar bill, they've got the U.S. emblem, which is an eagle holding olive branch and arrows, and that's just pretty much where it fell compositionally.
Is this large book intended to be the Bible?
Yes, it is an image that I had gleaned from an old clip art book, Yellow Pages clip art book, that when you hold the image against light, you would get this double image because they're printed on both sides of the page. And it just, to me, it brought some interesting juxtapositions for this painting. And then I would just kind of engineer it into my own ideology.
What is this character?
That is Scalia.
Scalia. Who is this gentleman?
That is Karl Rove and Condi Rice.
More of these playful molecules, molecular structure of DNA.
Yeah, it's like a strand that has split. You know, when a cell divides, it splits. So it's all going from the right and into the left.
This
embryo in his head.
An embryo in his mind.
Future soldier of America.
And who is this gentleman with the embryo in his head again?
Scalia.
That's Scalia. And who is this gentleman?
That is Donald Rumsfeld.
Donald Rumsfeld. What role do you feel that he played in politics in the past decade?
He suckered the UN into supporting our move into Iraq. That image is taken after the speech that Colin Powell gave to the UN, and he just had this look on his face like, oh, we suckered him.
And this glass filling up with an individual. Who is this individual drowning?
That is Abram. What was his name? Abram. One of those Republican fundraisers, and that is Scooter Libby.
Scooter Libby. Drowning.
Yeah, getting pissed on, basically.
So it's kind of like a Sorrento.
Yeah.
Very interesting. This gavel is marking some type of completion, or is it marking some type of beginning? Is it an adjournment symbol?
Well, it's yeah, I guess it's to finalize the umpteenth amendment, which
gives power to
people with money. Forget about the other amendments. This is the umpteenth amendment.
the chainsaw propelled by money.
Yeah.
Cutting through, destroying. Many instruments are seen here not to build but to destroy, to come not to bring peace but a sword, to quote some biblical text.
Well, maybe. I can see that. I think my idea was just cutting through the crap of their religiosity, and it's really all about money. It's not about, quote, values.
Cutting through the guys they hide behind.
Yes, yeah.
These creatures, they almost seem like crab-like or shrimp creatures. What are these?
Early embryo.
Early
stages.
embryo.
And they're all copyrighted.
And owned.
And owned, right, in this dystopian future.
Do you feel that humans are owned quite often? Directly or indirectly?
Indirectly, in the least.
Do you feel that the credit card system is a new form of the sharecropping system?
Seems that way to me.
is there a particular portion? Now there's Cheney.
Yep.
What is he? Is he in some type of restraint?
Well, he's kind of hiding behind a gasket for actually my old Suburban big motor, hiding behind the gasket.
He's hiding, so he's constantly shape-shifting and evading capture and continuing to mislead.
Yeah, in an undisclosed location.
What is this
Hunting cap?
hunting cap?
Yeah. Halliburton hunting cap.
Are you nonpartisan, or do you claim yourself as a Democrat?
I'm CPUSA, but they don't field candidates anymore. They usually give recommendations for alternatives. I guess socialist would be the way to describe them.
Very well. Do you feel that anything good has come out of the Republican Party in the past 20 years?
Gee, I try to be fair, but I think if anything, they have kind of sealed their fate with their obstructionist policy to the point to where they may become a minority party for the rest of the century.
What is this trigger?
It's a gun. It's a gun kind of hidden in the composition.
What does the gun, what does this function of the gun perform, and what happens when that trigger is pulled?
Well, it's just the gun that's always pointed at labor in this country. You either, as evidenced in this last election, there were threats made to workers. If you don't vote Republican, you just might lose your job. So
I see. Do you feel that there is no true representation of democracy in this country that's actually able to function for the people?
no, yeah, it's a big game about who gets all capital.
In the capital
I mean,
itself.
That's what runs elections now. It's all about getting the money.
What does the money do? Is the money merely a means of control?
Well, I mean, it's as evidenced by the Supreme Court ruling, it is free speech. Money is free speech. Although it didn't seem to work in this last presidential election. As much money as Karl Rove raised, it did not pay off, so there's hope.
So, do you think the money has the potential to turn into an energy that can again be used for more?
Sure. I mean, it's necessary to prime the pump.
So you feel the system of money that's been in place for the last century is still a working system that actually could allow for good in capitalism in this country?
It can, it has too much power, and I think the workers should have more voice.
Amen to that, brother.
But there is not a union voice, so to speak, left in this world, and in this country, because the numbers are too small.
Well, it's very difficult to become entrenched and entangled within your art without being engaged to self-contemplation in one's own political standing.
Okay, well, yeah,
And as far as interpreting this thing goes, I might read something else into it in a year or two.
Diego Rivera. I see things that could definitely stir the Rockefellers in this imagery. Do you feel that your art is a champion for freedom?
I hope so. It's at least championing my freedom.
So it's a voice of expression for
Yeah,
you
right.
that has
It's a
not been
voice of
silenced.
Right. And it's not really a public work of art like Rivera was doing. So I felt no compulsion to tone anything down.
This would be very difficult to place as public art due to the committees that
Oh,
meet.
yeah.
You know, somebody in the committee may very well be offended by some of the imagery, and that could make this have to be a private type of commission or artwork. I think it is a wonderful testament to the Art Museum of the University of Memphis that this grand scale mural of true freedom of voice is able to be facilitated and has been on view by the public. This could not happen anywhere. I could not see this image in a bank. If it was in a bank, it would be a very liberal bank. I am definitely intrigued, and for me, when I look at this imagery, I see the battle for human freedom on a spiritual scale and a material scale. I see the graves of the Indians entrenched inside of this mural. I see all the injustices ever waged upon human beings ingrained and enshrined within this mural. I believe there is great justice being done through the existence of this mural, Jan Hankins. And I thank you for creating this mural. And I thank you for your voice and for not holding back and not worrying about what people think or negative publicity. It goes back, it harkens to the voice. You cannot be afraid of the critics. If you are, don't bother to ever read their reviews, because that's not what art is about. What was the greatest highlight in painting this? What portion of this painting was the one that called out to you? I see the elephant foot here.
I like that touch. It just sort of happened because it fit the shape of the gun handle. Plus it touched on the GOP, skiing on thin ice.
The way you morph things. You did that, you did the chainsaw, you did... This is a little bit more, this is some type of burning log in the fire.
A burning cross.
A burning cross with a chain. Several viewers yesterday were in here visiting ArtLab, and they were extremely inquisitive as to the conceptual content behind that imagery particularly. What was the fuel that gave you incentive to create that burning cross with the chain?
Well, it's kind of like not a rosary, but crucifix you'd hang around your neck. Plus, I also wanted to see these people on a chain gang somewhere. So it's kind of loops through everybody's feet. You know, of course, the only one that's not on the chain gang is Bush. This part here, that's George Washington on the dollar bill. And I wanted to highlight those eyes some way.
as sort of another bracket between the beginning and the end. And the laser beam sort of cut right across it.
So Jan, what is this piece?
This was a sculpture, unquote, that I built maybe 2003, after 9/11 at least, might have been 2002. With the continuation of my war for oil period that I was working on before I went into this 9/11 period, with little dinosaurs and oil and gaskets. Those are gasket shapes. And I was trying to give the impression of the cloud that erupted on the ground when the buildings fell.
In the buildings of September 11th, though?
Yes, and the hat, again, it's the dipping bird oil well image that I'm going after. And it's also like the cloud of smoke that was pouring off of the World Trade Center after the planes hit. And the little figures are the first responders, firemen, then it became a sort of security issue, policemen, then soldiers.
FBI, CIA. What was your method for making these asterisk incision marks?
Jigsaw. Put it together, drew out the asterisks, and then it's kind of like an Uncle Sam hat.
Right. With smoke coming out of the top.
Yes. This is several things I had been working on, put together. The curvy boards at the bottom I did in probably 2002, after the beginning of the Iraq War. And there's 2 terms of Mr. Bush and then the term of Obama, which was a continuation of the same policies in a lot of ways, at least militarily and security-wise.
So each panel represents a term that Bush held in office.
Yeah, right. And of course, we were unsure when I installed the show whether it would be 1 term or 2 terms for Obama. But it worked out compositionally that way anyway. I wouldn't want 4 panels up there. This is one of those notorious internet postings by the soldiers who were guarding the prisoners and all the little hijinks they were having with the captured terrorists. And I think that's Lindy, England.
So this image is from Abu Ghraib.
One of the detention centers. Right, there were images of pyramids of naked quote terrorists unquote, and it was just soldiers having fun.
It seems that you painted Obama in a more uplifting fashion,
Yeah,
more flattering.
Hope.
As a saintly symbol of patronage of potential goodness to come.
Potential, or maybe superficial as far as the war policies go.
There's quite an arrangement of emblems and symbolism seems to be enframed within a symbol of fiat money, particularly the US dollar.
Yes. And they're, I guess I'm trying to make them look like the emblems you might see on a lectern for one specific agency or bureau, but they're also emblems you find on the dollar bill, as far as where they're printed and
What sources did you use to gather this imagery?
These images are taken from the juxtaposition of clip art, 50s clip art. I'm of course from that era, and it's just something nostalgic about that drawing style that I like. And the composition is based on elements of a dollar bill. On the back side, you've got the United States emblem and the pyramid and all that. In the front side, it's got your Department of Treasury and then where the bill is printed. So just still trying to maintain the dollar in the overall project. But then throwing in some imaginary departments that could have happened.
Your art is well past asking the question, is the system broken? Do you feel that your art holds any answers for ways to fix the system, or do we need an entirely new established system?
Yeah, don't look for me answers. I think there could be a better system. I mean, there's a value in local governance, but there's also a value in the collective. I mean, I like the notion of a Soviet system, which just meant organized by different trades, but not in the police state that evolved in the USSR. I mean, it became a police state and nobody wanted input from the bottom. It all came from the top. But any smart businessman will listen to the voices on the floor if he wants his business to progress.
So this seems remnants of...
It's the Wonder Bread logo. I just didn't want to have a wall full of these emblems, and I felt like I needed something to kind of explode from the center and also illustrate the dependence that the United States seems to have on China, who can be a really bad actor in this capitalist adventure.
What is this scar upon the signature of China?
That's a little, it's a cut, a little bit of oil dripping through there.
And it could get worse over
It could get
time.
worse. They are really eager to defend the Persian Gulf now. It is one of their sources of oil.
Which one of these circular emblems is your favorite that you've created by overlaying so many images together from the 50s graphic design sources?
I guess I kind of like the Department of Health and Second Mortgages. It's happening to a lot of people. Medical bills, next thing you know, second mortgage or foreclosed on.
And what happens to those people when their whole life caves in on them because they're crushed by
Medical bills.
and the need for more and more money, which they do not have?
Oh, it's a bad cycle to be in. I have been there.
What was the main thing you took with you from your experience of being there?
I think I could probably live a lot more frugally. Heck, I'd be happy just living in a warehouse now if I had a place to work. So, living in the studio.
Thank you, Jan.
My pleasure.
A true creator and a true person that utilized the space of ArtLab to really say something meaningful. Thank you. ArtLab, the dedicated art space